Hello, my name is Angela Hawkins. I am the Public Affairs Officer for the Green River District. Thank you for taking your time to join us and welcome to the Dingell Act Scoping Meeting concerning Price, Moab, and Vernal Resource Management Plan amendments. Tonight, we have a great panel of experts that are going to give information on the Resource Management Plan. First, I would like to introduce the Green River District Manager, Lance Porter.
Thank you very much, Angela. Welcome. My name is Lance Porter. Appreciate you being here with us this evening. I'm looking forward to our meeting. By way of introduction, I'm the district manager for the BLM Green River District located in Vernal, Utah. The Green River District includes both the Vernal BLM field office as well as the Price field office located in Price, Utah. So we're happy to have you join us this evening. A little bit of background information. In March 2019, the John D. Dingell Jr. Conservation, Management, and Recreation Act was signed into law. Tonight's scoping meeting is necessary for the BLM to complete 6 land use plan amendments and bring them into conformance with the Dingell Act. These targeted land use plan amendments are located in the Vernal, Moab, and Price BLM Utah field offices. We have outlined tonight's meeting to be able to receive feedback from each of you in various formats of this Zoom meeting. Since we have 6 plan amendments, our meeting format will be just a little bit different compared to other past scoping meetings. We'll talk about each land use plan amendment briefly, and our BLM staff will do a quick introduction for it, and then we'll open it up to allow public comments. You'll be given an opportunity to provide scoping comments and help the agency identify issues. We will then unmute your mic and allow you to provide us with your thoughts and insights on that specific plan amendment. And then after we've taken a few comments, then we'll go to the next plan amendment until we've walked through each of the 6. After we've talked about each of the 6 plan amendments, we'll also have some time near the end of the meeting to allow for comments that might relate to all of them, or if you have a go back that something else you've thought of, if we have time, we'll allow the opportunity to make comments on those items. This won't be the only opportunity that you'll have of being able to comment. Of course, you'll also be given the opportunity, and we want you to take the time to write feedback and to be able to put down some good scoping comments to the agency where you can articulate it and get it sent in to us where you're not just thinking on the fly during a Zoom meeting. So feel free to send those comments to us. We look forward to receiving your input, and we know that we can have a great productive meeting with your participation tonight. BLM staff and I appreciate our community members and the interested public for taking time out of your busy schedules and joining us for this meeting, which we know will guide future management of our public land resources. Thank you again for joining us. I look forward to hearing your insights and input and receiving your scoping comments. Angela will now cover a few housekeeping items, and then we'll begin.
Thank you, Lance. Our meeting is very full, and we'll be going through a lot of information. On our agenda for the meeting, the Dingell Act overview, planning versus implementation, public scoping and how to share relevant input, presentation of each land use plan amendment, next steps and timing, and opportunities for public. Although we'll be going over the information quickly, we will show you where you can find more information concerning each of the plans. As a reminder, we are here to discuss the changes the Dingell Act mandates. We value your input, and we'll be giving you time to comment. Please keep your input respectful and on point. Use the Q&A portal to ask questions and comments that contribute. To give everyone the opportunity to provide input, please limit your comments to 2 minutes. Attendees joining by computer can select raise the hand at the bottom of their screen or submit their comment through the question portal. Attendees joining by phone can press *9 to raise their hand and *6 to unmute their microphone. I will now turn the time over to Stephanie Howard.
Hello, my name is Stephanie Howard. I am the branch chief over NEPA and GIS for the Green River District. The Dingell Act of March 2019 created several special designations across the Price, Vernal, and Moab field offices. These include the Jurassic National Monument, the John Wesley Powell National Conservation Area, the McCoy Flats non-motorized trail system, 3 new segments in the Wild and Scenic River system on the Green River, the San Rafael Swell Recreation Area, and 17 wilderness areas. In addition, it released 17,420 acres of wilderness study area from further wilderness study. The Dingell Act specified in some of these designations what we should manage the areas for. In other designations, it only identifies resources to emphasize as we're developing the management. The Price, Vernal, and Moab resource management plans, which describe how BLM will manage public lands within those field office boundaries, were prepared in 2008, so they do not address any of these new designations. We are here today to begin the process to amend the resource management plans to number 1, identify management for the new designations, and number 2, to remove any decisions that conflict with the purposes of the designations. Next, Amber Koski, the Green River District Dingell Act Coordinator, will describe to you the difference between a resource management plan, which is a very specialized type of BLM prepared document, and an implementation level plan, which is a very common type of BLM prepared document and what most people are accustomed to see on the BLM's ePlanning NEPA register. Amber?
Thank you, Stephanie. Hi, my name is Amber Koski, and I'm a planning and environmental coordinator here for the Green River District. So resource management planning decisions are made on a broad scale and guide subsequent site-specific implementation decisions. The Resource Management Plan, or RMP for acronym, establishes management direction or the set of rules for public land use. RMP decisions for public lands fall into the following categories: goals, objectives, allowable uses, and allowable actions. Goals are broad statements of desired outcomes. A sample goal or a land health standard is maintain healthy, productive plant and animal communities. Objectives identify specific desired outcomes. Objectives are usually quantifiable and measurable and may have established timeframes for achievement. And a sample objective might be manage vegetative communities on the upland portion of the Y watershed to achieve by 2025 an average 30 to 40% canopy. More specific. Allowable uses are allowances, limitations, or prohibitions defined by area, activity, or resource. A sample allowable use is Y watershed OHVs are limited to designated trails. Management actions are those decisions that aim to maintain, restore, or improve desired conditions. A sample action is develop a watershed restoration plan for Y watershed. In contrast, implementation plans are site-specific decisions that result in on-the-ground projects. These are typically go, no-go type decisions, such as whether and where to build a campground. Implementation plans must conform to RMP decisions. If an implementation plan does not conform to those decisions, then it cannot be approved unless the RMP is amended. The BLM is not intending to make implementation level decisions in these plan amendments. If implementation level comments are received during this comment period, the BLM will not address them at this time. However, they may address them later in an implementation level document. Next slide, please. Scoping. Scoping is a requirement of both the National Environmental Policy Act and BLM planning regulations. Scoping is meant to be collaborative. It includes public involvement and is used to identify resource issues to be addressed during the planning process. To be most Your comment should provide new information such as resource issues to be considered, data or studies to be used, possible alternatives, and applicable consultation or coordination needs. Resource issues are disputes or controversies about potential land management due to new information. In this case, the Dingell Act designations. For example, the wilderness areas by policy must be managed as Visual Resource Management Class 1, the most restrictive VRM class, which requires preservation of the viewshed. So VRM is not a planning issue for the 17 wilderness areas. However, there is no policy requiring a specific VRM class in a designated trail system or designated recreation area. So determining the appropriate VRM class will likely be a resource issue for McCoy Flats or the San Rafael Swell amendments. Scoping also involves the introduction of preliminary planning criteria to the public for comment. Next slide, please. Planning criteria guide development of the plan by helping define the decision space or the sideboards that define the scope of the planning effort. Planning criteria are generally based upon applicable law, director and state director guidance, and the results of public and governmental participations. Some examples of planning criteria are listed on this slide. They might include, but are not limited to the following. The plan will be completed in compliance with FLPMA, NEPA, and all other relevant federal laws, executive orders, and management policies of the BLM. Or where existing planning decisions are still valid, those decisions may remain unchanged and be incorporated into the new RMP or amendment. The plans will recognize valid existing rights, or Native American tribal consultation will be conducted in accordance with policy, and tribal concerns will be given due consideration. Next slide, please. We're going to now go over the ePlanning websites where available information is there for you to comment upon. In total, there are 7 Dingell Act ePlanning websites tied to each resource plan amendment, one of which being the portal site that you can access each project planning site. There you will see the notice of intent, scoping information documents, and maps for each planning area. We're going to go ahead and post in the chat those links for your convenience. Next slide, please. For those of you unfamiliar with the ePlanning portal website, what I do is I type in Google, in my Google search engine, I usually just type in ePlanning. This is the Find a Project portal page. Under search criteria, I type in Dingell Act. Next slide, please. On this slide, you're seeing a list of sites that that are associated with Dingell Act as a search criteria. You want to type on the one that says Public Law 116-9 or John D. Dingell Junior Conservation Management and Recreation Act. Next slide, please. This will take you to our portal webpage, at which point you can either select a short link of the specific project that interests you, or you can select Participate Now. Next slide, please. Either way, it will take you to this comment page. All you need to do to submit your comment is select the Participate Now button. I'm now going to turn the time over to the Vernal Field Office. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amber. My name is Roger Banker, and I'm the field manager for the Vernal Field Office. I'd like to echo Lance's comments, and we appreciate your participation in this process. The Vernal Field Office has 2 Dingell Act sections we'll be discussing tonight. One is the John Wesley Powell National Conservation Area Overview, and the other will be the McCoy Flats National Non-Motorized Trail System. I'll turn this over now to my assistant field manager, Renee RC, for further information. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. Hello, everyone. As Roger mentioned, I am the Assistant Field Manager over Resources in the Vernal Field Office. I'm happy to be here tonight, and I'm looking forward to presenting two of the unique areas that were designated by the John D. Dingell Act within the Vernal Field Office, as mentioned previously. So the first is the John Wesley Powell National Conservation Area, or NCA for short. As you can see on the map, the John Wesley Powell NCA is an area located approximately 20 air miles northeast of Vernal, Utah, and consists of an area of just under 30,000 acres. The John Wesley Powell NCA was named after the famous explorer whose expedition brought him through the area in the mid to late 1800s. The John Wesley Powell NCA is a primitive area, meaning that to this day, there hasn't been much development made to the land. There are a few roads within the NCA, adding to the overall remoteness and ruggedness of the area, offering visitors spectacular vistas and primitive recreation opportunities throughout. Some current uses within the NCA include things such as livestock grazing, wildlife habitat improvement projects, and hunting. If you are interested in this newly designated NCA, I encourage you to consider submitting a formal comment. Thank you, and back to you, Angela.
Thank you, Renee. As Renee said, we would like to turn over a small amount of time for participants' input on the John Wesley Powell National Conservation Area. Comments will be most helpful if you can state specifically what you like or don't like and what improvements you think can be made. To have the opportunity to talk, you may raise your virtual hand either at the bottom of your screen or by pushing *9 on your phone, *6 to unmute. Thank you, Mark, for your question. We will be answering that within the Q&A portal. We will be moving on to our next portion. We're going to go back to Renee to talk about the McCoy Flats trail system.
Hello again. The second area that I'd like to present today is the McCoy Flats mountain bike trail system. The McCoy Flats mountain bike trail system is located southwest of Vernal, Utah, within what we would consider the urban interface, meaning that it's close to town, as you can see on the map. Due to its close proximity to Vernal, the McCoy Flats area, including the mountain bike trail system, has become a popular recreation area for both the local community as well as visitors that come to recreate on the existing designated mountain bike trails within that area. The McCoy Flats mountain bike trail system is the first congressionally designated mountain bike trail system in the nation. Because of this unique designation, the BLM is working to develop a management plan for the McCoy Flats mountain bike trail system that is meaningful and sustainable for future generations. If you are interested in the McCoy Flats mountain bike trail system, I encourage you to consider submitting a formal comment today or anytime during the open comment period. Thank you for your time, and I'll give it back to Angela.
Thank you, Renee. We would like to open a small amount of time for participants' input concerning McCoy Flats trail system. Thank you for keeping your comments specific. You may raise your virtual hand either at the bottom of your screen or by pushing *9 on your phone, *6 to unmute. We will now move over to Judy. Judy, if you will go ahead and mute yourself.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm just wondering if, I know motorized use is prohibited in this area. I'm just wondering if you're planning to allow e-bikes in this area?
So thank you so much for that question. That's a fantastic question. We will be considering your comment as we move forward.
Okay, I'd like to say that our comment is we do not want to see e-bikes in this area.
Thank you. The more specific you can be with your comments, the better off we can manage those comments. So thank you so much for clarifying. Jason, yes.
So a lot of this area, there's a lot of existing motorized routes that I would like to add the comment that need to remain open. They provide access for a variety of different uses, including motorized and non-motorized. And so I would like to show support for maintaining open motorized routes that are currently open in the McCoy Flats area.
Thank you for that comment as well, Jason. We really appreciate everyone who's willing to give us any feedback. So we will be moving on. And I'd like to hand this over to the Price Field office and to Dana Truman.
Hi, my name is Dana Truman, and I'm an assistant field manager here out of the Price Field office. In this section, we'll be talking about the Jurassic National Monument. The large map on your left shows the Jurassic National Monument located in the northern part of the Swell, just about 45 minutes south of Price. The Dingell Act designated this new 850-acre monument to protect the paleontological, scientific, educational, and recreational resources. It also includes the Cleveland Lloyd Dinosaur Quarry that many of you may be familiar with. Much of our land uses in the area will stay the same as they were before the designation, including the livestock grazing. However, within the monument, there will be a few changes. Infrastructure development will be limited, motorized vehicles will be limited to designated roads, and mineral development would not occur, for example. The Dingell Act also directed the BLM to continue their research and educational activities at the monument, and it directed BLM to provide the information about the paleontological resources that are there. The BLM may develop some agreements with other organizations to help support our activities and shared goals. With the designation of the monument, we do expect that visitation would increase. During this plan amendment process, we're very interested in your input on what goals, objectives, and allowable uses we should consider on how we can meet the requirements in the Dingell Act. We will also be considering our overlapping designations. Our current RMP has, as the map in the center of your screen shows, we have a Cleveland Lloyd Dinosaur Quarry Special Recreation Management Area shown in the blue outline. We also have a Cleveland Lloyd Dinosaur Quarry Area of Environmental Concern shown in the blue kind of outline, the brown polygon on that map. And during this plan amendment process, we'll be looking at whether we should retain, modify, or remove those special overlapping designations. We're very interested in your input, and I turn the time back to Angela.
Thank you, Dana. Thank you again for keeping your comments focused. For those who would like to comment on the Jurassic National Monument, you may raise your virtual hand either at the bottom of your screen or by pushing *9 on your phone, *6 to unmute. Judy, would you please go ahead?
Sure, thank you. And just to clarify, I'm with the Southern Utah Wilderness Alliance. We would like to see the ACEC designations remain in place for the monument.
Thank you for that comment, Judy. We really appreciate it. Okay, great. We will move on to our next slide. We'll be moving over to Chris Conrad to talk about the Green River Wild, Scenic, and Recreational River Segments Overview.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Chris Conrad, the Price Field Office Manager. And as Angela said, I'll be highlighting the Wild, Scenic, and Recreational River segments. On the slide, you'll see over on the left, gives you kind of an overview of the location. We have Emery County on the west side, and that's all part of the Price Field Office. The river runs north-south, and then to the east of the river, that's also mainly, we have tribal at the top, and then we have our sister office, the Moab Field Office. The designation gave us approximately 63 miles of new river. And going from north to south, the blue, there's about 5.3 miles of wild. There's just south of that, we have 8.5 miles of recreation and 49.2 miles down south of there along Desolation, the new Desolation, I'm sorry, Desolation Canyon is south. This is Labyrinth Canyon down at the bottom of your map. Let's see. There will be valid existing rights will be honored, including our commercial services, SRPs, rights of ways, and mining claims, if there's any. However, the new developments will prohibit new development, new activities in the wild segment. It will be limited in the scenic segment. And so again, that's down in the Labyrinth area. And it will be allowed in the recreational segment in the green area, as long as it preserves the ORVs, the remarkable, outstanding and remarkable values. Next slide, please. On this slide, it's a close in of the three areas, and what it's illustrating here is the river corridor, and what's designated here will be some protected lands. Approximately 1/4 mile from the center of the river out in both directions. It's actually 320 acres per river mile will be protected. And so what we've done is we've done our best to protect the outstanding and remarkable values associated with the river as we see them. And you'll see that area in the hatched part of the map for each of those three segments. You'll be able to comment on the corridor itself, how it was mapped, and the ORVs, the outstanding remarkable values. And that's it for me. Back to you, Angela.
Thank you, Chris. We would like to now ask for participants' input on the Green River Wild Scenic River segments. Again, you can raise your virtual hand either at the bottom of the screen or by pushing *9 on your phone, and again, *6 to unmute. Michael, go ahead, please.
Hi, thanks for taking my comment. This is Mike Fiebig with American Rivers, and we've participated in a number of comprehensive river management plans over the years, and we're used to dealing with them in what seems like a longer process than this, a separate NEPA process. As you know, the Interagency Wild and Scenic River Coordinating Council has very specific direction on comprehensive river management plans for wild and scenic rivers, and they're incredibly detailed. So I'm curious what the overall timeline for this process is, what the plan for public engagement is. It looks like there's been some work done already on corridors and some other things prior to scoping. So I'm really curious about how the BLM is going to address in a comprehensive way, according to the act and to agency direction, all of the pieces that go into a comprehensive river management plan here.
Michael, thank you for that question/comment. And of course, we'll be looking into that. I would say that I'm sure Lance will express this at the end. Please reach out to the local office and have conversations with them.
Okay, who would that be? Who, for folks interested in digging into the comprehensive river management plan, who would be the primary point of contact?
So on our panelists tonight, you have Dana Truman, and you also have Chris Conrad.
Okay, great, thanks. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I can just add, Angela, as well, that, that river segment is shared with both the Moab field office as well as Price. And so we'll be coordinating on that one together between the Moab office as well as the Price office. And, you bring up some great points, and those are really the purpose of scoping, is to be able to get the issues out for us and to help the agency understand what those issues are. And so we appreciate your thoughts and your concerns, and feel free to call Price or the Moab office as well. And we'll be happy to help you out.
Great, thanks so much. We'll submit detailed scoping comments too and reference that agency direction that we'll be looking for moving forward for this plan component.
Great. And one other quick response to your question, on the timing, the river segment will have its own analysis that will be working through the process. So each of these 6 plan amendments doesn't mean they're all going to go at the same time. We put them in one Federal Register notice for ease of our public meeting tonight. But they all could take a little bit different timing based on the issues that are brought up and how we can resolve them and working through that process.
Great, thank you. That's refreshing to hear. I was hoping that this wouldn't be, that the CRMP wouldn't be done on the timeline of a normal plan amendment.
Thank you, Lance, and thank you, Michael. Judy, if you'll go ahead and talk.
Sure, yeah, thank you. And we're really going to defer a lot to American Rivers on these issues. And I guess I'm confused as to the last question. I actually have 2 questions. One is each of the scoping documents says that you're planning to complete the plan within a year, which kind of contradicts what you just said about each of them taking very different courses, because there's not that much time, particularly for something like this, within a year to get that comprehensive plan out. So that's one thing. The second thing is we'd really like to see the BLM assess the impacts of motorized use and roads in these corridors and near these wild, scenic, and recreation areas, and really do that in-depth analysis of how motorized vehicle use impacts these rivers and their corridors.
Judy, thank you for those questions and comments. Lance, I'm not sure if you want to address that question about it taking a year or longer now, or if you would like to move on.
It's a great concern, and we'd like to have a target. We want to get them done as quickly as we can, but we've got a lot of other workload, and so we might just need to have some other things as we work them in as we can.
Perfect. Thank you, Lance. Thank you, Judy. We'll go back to Chris to talk about Desolation, Turtle, and Labyrinth areas.
Okay, thanks again, Angela. So I'll be highlighting 3 topics in this one topic itself. First off is the wilderness areas themselves. We'll have to change the RMP to illustrate that we now have 3 wilderness areas instead of wilderness study areas. In the middle picture, the top we have Desolation and Turtle. And then down at the bottom, we have the Labyrinth wilderness areas. Second, as stated earlier, we have about 420 acres of wilderness study areas that didn't make it into the wilderness areas. And if you'll go to the next slide, Angela, we can better point those out. Notice the blue arrow at the top and the middle diagram. It's pointing at an area pretty close to and around the Lila Canyon mine, Williams Draw, and that area was pulled out of the wilderness study area boundary or landmass. And so you'll have an opportunity to comment on that. Down at the bottom, although there's no blue arrow, just north of the city of Green River, there's another area that didn't make it into the wilderness area, and you'll have an opportunity to comment on those. Third, you'll notice a light blue boundary at the top of the map, and that is illustrating our Range Creek Special Recreation Area. And as Dana discussed a little bit before, and there was a question about whether or not we need these extra special designations, that's what this one is about. Should we keep it as is? Should we modify it? or should we get rid of it completely? I think all of those things are on the table, and I think we're looking for comments along those lines. And that's it for me, and back to you.
Thank you, Chris. We'd like to open a small amount of time to the participants to comment on Desolation, Turtle, and Labyrinth wilderness areas. Again, you may raise your virtual hand either at the bottom of your screen or by pushing *9 on your phone, *6 to unmute. Great, Judy, thank you. Go ahead and talk.
Thanks. Yeah, we're going to submit pretty extensive comment on this, but again, we particularly related to the ACECs, we'd like to see those ACECs remain in place.
Fantastic. Thank you. Okay. It looks like we will move on. And we'll move back to Dana to talk about the San Rafael Swell Recreation Area.
Hi. So again, my name is Dana, and I am an assistant field manager for resources here in the Price Field office. For this section, I'll be talking about 3 interrelated designations from the Dingell Act. The first designation is the San Rafael Swell Recreation Area. In the large map on the left of your screen, you can see the San Rafael Swell Recreation Area outlined in blue. It's in the heart of our San Rafael Swell, and it has I-70 running through the middle of it. The Dingell Act designated approximately 217,000 acres as the San Rafael Swell Recreation Area to protect and enhance the recreational, natural, and educational resources of the area. Many of the land uses that were occurring prior to designation will continue as it is a recreation area, including livestock grazing. However, there will be a few changes. For example, motorized vehicles will be limited to designated roads, and the construction of new permanent or temporary roads would be prohibited. Visitation to the San Rafael Swell Recreation Area is expected to increase over the next several years due to the designation and the wonderful resources within it. To respond to that increase, BLM may need to consider new facilities so that we can provide that better visitor experience to people. During this plan amendment, we are interested in what goals, objectives, and allowable uses should occur so that we can meet these requirements of the Dingell Act. Looking at the map in the center of the screen, you can see the San Rafael Swell Recreation Area as a green polygon, and then it's surrounded by an orange polygon. And those are our wilderness areas that are new. So next slide, please. So surrounding the San Rafael Swell Recreation Area is kind of a ring of 14 wilderness area designation or wilderness areas that were designated through the Dingell Act. The Wilderness Act does require BLM to manage and for the protection and enhancement of the wilderness character. But many of our land uses will continue. Recreation activities, the valid and existing rights, and livestock grazing will all continue in those wilderness areas. But there are some changes. For example, permanent roads, motorized vehicles, mechanized vehicles will all be prohibited, except in some rare cases. Let's go to the next slide for the third designation. All right, so on the third designation through the Dingell Act, the Dingell Act released approximately 17,400, I guess exactly 17,420 acres of public land from wilderness study. This means that during the completion of the Dingell Act, it was determined some areas met the requirement for wilderness, and these 17,000 acres did not. And so they are released from the wilderness study area. When lands are released from wilderness study area, they will go back to kind of general BLM. So during this plan amendment, we're going to be looking at, what objectives or goals or allowable uses do we need to place on these lands for the future. The reason why acreages are not exact is that we are still preparing our map and legal descriptions. for these wilderness areas as required by the Dingell Act. Again, during this plan amendment process, we hope to get your input of, what allowable uses, goals, objectives do we need so that we can meet the requirements of the Dingell Act. I'd like to turn the time back to Angela.
Thank you, Dana, for all of that information. If you would like to provide input for the San Rafael Swell Recreation Area, you may raise your virtual hand either at the bottom of your screen or by pushing *9 on your phone, *6 to unmute. Great, Judy, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Again, we're going to be submitting comprehensive comments. But again, we'd like to see the ACECs remain in place here. And also, we'd like to see really a zoned approach to recreation management here, identifying front country, back country, maybe some middle country areas. Somewhat similar to the Grand Staircase Escalante management plan. And we believe that there should be designated dispersed camping throughout the rec area. I think recreation has really become an issue. And so unfortunately, we may have to deal with it with the designated dispersed camping areas.
Thank you so much for that comment.
Can I ask one more thing? Sorry.
Absolutely.
I'm wondering if there's been a lands with wilderness characteristics update for the rec area. I know that the BLM was using that, and we'd like to see those updated inventories as part of the scoping process.
Thank you for that, Judy. Dana, would you like to address that?
I sure can. Yeah, Judy, thank you for your interest in the LWC updates. When LWC units are updated, those reports are posted on our websites. And so we can send you the link and you can see if the information that you need is there.
Thank you, Dana. There are no further comments for the San Rafael. We will move on. We'll go back to Amber to talk about next steps and timing.
Again, everyone. So just keeping in mind that for these land use or resource management plan amendments, the BLM is really focused on ensuring that our current RMPs are not in conflict with the new Dingell Act designations. So with that being said, public comments are due on December 3rd. Comments should provide sufficient detail for the agency to understand your position and why the issues you raise are important to that decision. Following the scoping period, the BLM will consolidate the comments that we receive into a scoping report, and that report will summarize the issues, alternatives, and data that was provided in those comments. The scoping report, when completed, will be posted to our ePlanning website. Then the BLM and their cooperating agencies will use that information to form alternatives for each of the plan amendments. Once the alternatives are formed, the BLM will work with the cooperating agencies to analyze the impacts of those alternatives. A draft resource management plan, environmental assessment, will then be released to the public for review and comment. Per policy, amendments that consider ACECs or areas of critical environmental concern will be subject to a 60-day comment period. Those that do not consider ACECs will be subject to a 30-day comment period. The comments received will be analyzed. Substantive comments, those that identify flaws, new alternatives, or incorrect or new data, will be responded to. And a proposed resource management plan or environmental assessment will be released, triggering a 30-day protest period, and a 60-day governor's consistency review period. After those periods are complete, a final decision record may be issued. Thank you for taking time out of your busy days to join us tonight. Angela, back to you.
Thank you, Amber, for those next steps. Thank you again to all our panelists and to our participants. There was a great deal of information given. It's important that we receive your feedback and hear about unique issues that affect you. We'd like to give you another opportunity to provide input on the 6 plan amendments that were presented. Please raise your hand virtually. We'll go to Michael first.
Hi again. Sorry to belabor this point. You know, December 3rd is awfully quick to comment on 6 plan amendments of this scope and scale, including one that is a sub-comprehensive river management plan located within this larger plan amendment process. And I was wondering, and you know, I wanted to come back to this idea of the overall timeline too, and if you all wouldn't mind restructuring, as you said would possibly be the case, the CRMP timeline and pushing it back out to folks, because looking at your overall timeline and the hurried nature of it, I mean, I was just glancing again at the components of a comprehensive river management plan and all of the things that go into establishing baseline conditions and identifying user groups and assessing user capacity and having public comment all the way through. And these are interagency guidelines for which the BLM is part of. I just don't see how this can be done in the short timeline that you're proposing, with alternatives and you know, a 60-day comment period and so forth. So I'm just concerned as a partner, because I want to see this be really successful, and you know, knock on wood, we'll have other BLM-led wild and scenic comprehensive river management plans for sections of the Green River in the future, and I'd love to see this one really be an example to those that might follow. Thanks.
Thank you, Michael. Lance?
Yeah, thanks, Michael, for you know, raising it again and expressing your concerns. You know, the agency is following our guidance and processes or timelines when we're setting these things up. But public comment period and scoping is a great time for members of the public and our cooperating agencies and partners and other folks to raise their hand, or another term, instead of raise your hand, you know, express through a comment letter at scoping of a concern that you think it needs to take a certain amount of time, or it ought to be a little bit longer to give some well thought out, meaningful decisions. And those things can really help the agency as we look at these timelines and move ahead. And so I think it's a great comment, and it'd be something that we would look forward to seeing, if it's something that you feel comfortable putting in writing and helping us through that process.
Yeah, I definitely will. Thanks for that. And thanks for being open to it. I appreciate it.
The other thing that I'd like to respond to, Michael, is your request for additional time. I have had a request come into us asking for the time frame of December 3rd to be extended. And again, you know, we put in the minimum requirement when we posted it in the Federal Register notice. That's pretty typical of almost all of our projects. Generally, it goes in with the standard language of when that comment period will end. And then based on the complexities of those projects, or even other things going on, both in the field office and in the other general area in the state, requests for an extension of time can be requested. So we have a request that we're looking at right now. I'm analyzing it. I'm working with our state office, and we should have a response out soon. And if we do change that time frame, you'll see it change on our ePlanning website, right at that main portal page that we first showed you, where you can click on any of the 6 plan amendments. And then, of course, as you go to each of them plan amendments, we'll update it on those pages as well.
All right. Thank you.
Hey, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Lance. Thank you, Michael. We'll go to Wendy first and then over to Judy.
Hi, my name is Wendy Lessig, and I'm an avid backcountry pilot. I'm also a member of the board of the Utah Backcountry Pilots Association, and I'm the state liaison for Utah for the Recreational Aviation Foundation. I could have commented on each of the sections, but I thought I'd give my comment for kind of all the 6 together. But there are quite a few backcountry airstrips that are already existing. A lot of them are in the San Rafael the San Rafael recreational area. And there are a few in the recreational part of the Green River recreation segment. And I would like to request that the BLM consider adding to the RMPs and the planning documents to make aviation an allowable use in all of these areas. There aren't any airstrips in some of the areas, but for the ones that have airstrips that are existing, which have been there since, say, the 50s, I'd request that the BLM continue to allow aviation to occur there, since aviation provides not only recreation, but also, emergency response, and doesn't leave a big footprint like roads and other OHVs make. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Wendy, thank you so much for your comment. Judy?
Yes, thank you. I have kind of one overarching comment. You mentioned that one of the criteria, indeed the first criteria, is to comply with the multiple use and sustained yield management framework. And that's actually incorrect, because the Dingell Act legislation really put these areas outside of multiple use and sustained yield, and they're to be managed as according to the language set out in the act itself, which is not necessarily multiple use and sustained yield. So I would say that that is not a primary criteria, or even a criteria that these leased lands should be managed under.
Thank you for that comment, Judy. So just as a reminder, please submit all of your substantive comments in writing to our ePlanning site. We do have some questions that have come in throughout the presentation that we would like to address. The first one will go to Lance, talking about the grazing allotments for John Wesley Powell.
Thanks, Angela. Yeah, one of the questions came in with how many livestock grazing numbers, what's the number of cattle or sheep inside the John Wesley Powell NCA. And so that's a pretty specific number that I actually don't have at my fingertips tonight, but just a little bit of background, and it covers not only the John Wesley Powell NCA, but all of these planning amendments. BLM does issue livestock grazing permits on these areas. So when folks are looking at the number, like how many cattle are there, the number of cattle is only one piece of the picture. We also need to take into account the timing, how long they're there. And so when we issue a grazing permit, we do it for a certain length of time, the timing that they can be out on the public lands, and then the number, and that equates to an animal unit month. And so some permits, they might have a very small number of livestock for a month and a half or 2 months. And so it can kind of vary greatly. And so I just don't have all those numbers at our fingertips, but probably a great resource is our rangeland authorization system, which is posted online, and folks can find that, and you can look up livestock grazing allotments within any of these areas, and then you can see the entire grazing permit, which is permitted, which will give you the livestock number, the season of use, and the AUMs. Hope that helps answer it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lance. The next question, Amber, if you don't mind fielding this question, what would you consider a substantive comment?
It's a really good question. So to be most helpful, substantive comments are specific. A substantive comment provides some new information about the proposed action, an alternative, or the analysis. It might identify a different way to meet the need. I heard a comment about the planning criteria that I thought was excellent, and I hope that that commenter submits it in writing, because those are the kind of points that are going to help flesh out our alternatives as we move forward. Additionally, comments that help us correct factual errors or identifies a different source of credible research, which is used in our analysis, could result in different effects, are really the best and most helpful comments that we might be able to receive. Thanks, Angela.
Thank you, Amber. I appreciate that. Lance, if you have a minute more, could you answer this question? You kind of did at the beginning, but why are we addressing all 6 plan amendments in this single meeting? Why don't they all get their own?
You bet. You know, the John D. Dingell Act established the management designations and direction simultaneously. So it came out under one act. And so several of these plans under that act had completion times that were specified in the act. So our 6 plan amendments are necessary to comply with the act. And, you know, we really recognize, like I mentioned at the beginning, that everybody's time is valuable, and we appreciate the time that they're taking. It's always a challenge. And, you know, I actually struggled with this question. Do I have 6 scoping meetings of 2 meetings apiece, which would be 12 meetings, and take that much time of our partners and our agencies and other members of the public, knowing that their time is valuable? Or was there a way to combine it into a meeting like we've done tonight? And we really felt like that we could get the issues pulled together using this format. Last night, we had a very successful meeting, similar tonight. Really good questions, great feedback and input from the members of the public and those that are joining our meetings. And so I really think that the format's going to work out really well. And we appreciate you taking the time. And when you submit your scoping comments, try to break it out by each of the plan amendment areas, and that'll really help us as well. And then we'll work through those plan amendments and taking in your feedback. So we value your input. Each of these plan amendments are really important to us, and that all of them scoping comments will be reviewed. Thank you, Angela.
Thank you, Lance. You did touch on just a bit with our comments and who had commented. Who are our cooperators?
You know, we've got a lot of cooperators that we're working with. We sent out cooperating agency invites to several county, state, and tribal groups. To date, we've received a handful back to be a cooperating agency. And yeah, I'll just share with everybody, we have a Bureau of Indian Affairs. They signed a cooperative agreement with us. The National Park Service, we have several of their offices that signed a cooperating agency agreement. That would include Canyon Lands, Glen Canyon, Dinosaur National Landmark, or Dinosaur National Park, as well as the National Landmark Office with the National Park Service. With the state of Utah, we had several agencies within the state of Utah that are also cooperating agencies with us. One of them is the Public Lands Policy and Coordinating Office, or PLIPCO, the School and Institutional Trust Lands, and the Division of Forestry and Fire, and the State Sovereign Lands, as well as state parks. We've got a couple of counties signed on so far. Daggett and Uena County have both signed on to be cooperating agencies. And then with cities, we have the City of Green River, Huntington, and Naples have all signed on to be cooperating agencies over the respective land use plan amendments that they're interested in. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Lance. I appreciate all of that information. Chris, if you're available, one of the questions that came through, most of the resource management plan amendment areas also have ongoing OHV travel management planning. Shouldn't the RMP amendment be completed first?
Good question. They are different processes. There is a hierarchy. One actually controls the other. If the TMPs were to get done before the RMP modifications and the RMP said something different, we would have to modify the TMP. And the flip of that, again, we would have to modify the TMP and or wait.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Sticking with the Price Field Office, Dana, if you have a second, will BLM be considering areas of critical environmental concern in this planning effort? I know that we had several comments on the ACECs.
Yes, I was excited to hear the comments and interest in the areas of environmental concern. And so during this process, we will be reviewing each area of environmental concern to determine, is there redundancy or is there need for the designation, and how can we best protect and manage those resources in the area. And as part of that process, we'll be kind of writing reports and reviewing each ACEC individually, and we can share that information to people if they're interested. So thank you.
Thank you, Dana. Lance, since you've been intimately involved with the San Rafael Swell Recreation Advisory Council, are they going to be able to provide input into the plan amendment process?
Absolutely, you bet. We really appreciate the San Rafael Swell Recreation Advisory Council. Those members of that council take time out of their own time and spend it working on that council and advising the agency. We value their input. Advisory council meetings are published in the Federal Register, and it takes time to set up those meetings and to follow all of the rules and regulations for an advisory council. We're actually preparing a Federal Register notice for an advisory council meeting early next year. Although the scoping period will be over by then, members of the advisory council have been notified. They're aware of this planning process. They can provide comments now, but even aside of them providing comments now, the advisory council is able to provide comments to the agency at any time during the planning process. So even when we hold that meeting early next year, we will always take input from the advisory council. And I don't think it'll be too late at all, especially where we're taking a look at whether or not we're going to extend the comment period. And those types of things. We'll still be analyzing comments, and we'll still have plenty of ample time to listen to the San Rafael Swell Advisory Council and to provide their feedback into this process.
Thank you, Lance. I'm sure that's very good information for those who are on.
Thank you.
Dana, can you explain how will existing special recreation management areas be addressed in these planning efforts?
Sorry, it's sometimes hard for me to click all the buttons in the right order. But yeah, so how are we going to address our special recreation management areas? Very similar to how we're going to be looking at the areas of environmental concern. We'll be looking at the need based on resource needs. If the special recreation management areas, can they enhance and help us manage the resources, or will it be better to work with just the designations within the Dingell Act? So again, we'll do kind of site-specific review and then make the best decision that we can. Thanks.
Thank you, Dana. Sticking with that special recreation management area question, there's a second part, and I'm hoping Renee might be able to answer this question. Will the BLM designate any new SRMAs?
Hi, yeah, that's a good question. The BLM will be looking into whether or not it would be beneficial, sorry, my thing was off, beneficial for designating new special recreation management areas in both the McCoy Flats and the John Wesley Powell areas. And again, that's part of the planning process, and that's why we're here. And we will definitely be looking for input on that, and we will analyze for those potential SERMAs. Thank you.
Thanks, Renee. And I'm sure either you or Dana can address this question. Will existing outfitters and guides with special recreation permits be impacted by these 6 land use planning efforts? We touched briefly on it, but the information went really quickly. So maybe one of you could answer that question for me.
I can. So just about outfitters and guides, is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
There's so many terms, but yes. So currently our special recreation permit holders or SRP holders, they have to abide by the terms and conditions or stipulations on their permit, which are consistent with our RMP. As we move forward through, modifying our RMP and the Dingell with the Dingell Act designations, the SRP holders would need to continue to be in compliance with the terms and conditions. So if there's modifications, that'll be taken care of kind of at the implementation level. But in both cases, they are just consistent with what we have in our planning.
Thank you, Dana. Although Lance already addressed a little bit of the grazing, Chris, can you just talk about how BLM might make changes to livestock grazing as part of these planning efforts?
I will try. So the Dingell Act was pretty specific, saying that grazing rights would be honored in the wilderness areas. And so I don't think the numbers are going to change. The access to a number of these places may change depending on the route that was in and what it was going to. Beyond that, I think in any planning process, we'll be able to look at many of the aspects that have to do with ranching, but to change the AUMs and those kind of things, I don't think that that's possible in these amendments.
Thank you, Chris. Roger, will the BLM allow mineral development or oil and gas activity in the specially designated areas?
Excuse me. Implementation of the Dingell Act will not affect valid existing mineral rights. However, the act prohibits new mineral leases, mining claims, prospecting or exploration activities, and oil, gas, and geothermal leases within the monument, National Conservation Area, wilderness areas, San Rafael Swell, and the wild segment of the Green River Wild and Scenic River. However, the act did not specify how minerals should be managed in the McCoy Flats area. So the McCoy amendment may contain mineral development alternatives. Angela.
Thank you, Roger. Dana, thank you. I know we're looking to your expertise a lot this evening. Another question we had are about the trails and the trailheads identified. Will there be any new trails allowed?
Great question. I mean, with the Santa Fe Swell Recreation Area, it does come to mind that maybe there will be more trails and trailheads. But again, that is more of an implementation level decision. Right now, during our RMP planning process, we're going to be looking at, what uses and what activities do we want to encourage or allow, like within the recreation area or the wilderness areas. And so based on that guidance that will come through this planning process, we will then look at those implementation level decisions about where and how many trailheads are either enhanced or developed so that we can provide the recreation opportunity that the people need.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Chris, another question for you. The BLM addresses land conveyances and SITLA land exchanges. How does that happen?
So the SITLA is actually the one that initiates that. They would like to divest a number of their parcels that are within the wilderness areas. And it's up to them to work it out with the BLM. And it is kind of a iterative process. They would like to give us those lands so that we can manage them with in the wilderness areas. And in exchange, dollar for dollar, they will select lands valuable to them that BLM possesses, and in a way trade them out. It's quite a long process, and there's a lot of steps inside of it.
Thank you for that information. So this question, actually, I'm going to defer back to Stephanie and her expertise. It's a two-part question. One, how seriously does the BLM take public comments? And how does BLM address those comments that are received?
Thank you, Angela. The BLM takes public comment very seriously. We really appreciate the time spent to submit every comment. We read every comment that is submitted to us. For this stage, the scoping stage, the comments will be summarized into a report that will list the themes of the comment and may list how we plan to incorporate it into the planning process. For future public comment periods, during the draft RMP public comment period, for example, the comments will be substantive comments, the ones that provide the data that, additional data we should consider or alternatives that we missed. Those received actual responses in the document. But for this stage, we're planning to prepare this report that summarizes the comments, and that report will be published to the ePlanning register when it is completed.
Stephanie, thank you so much. For those who are interested, this evening's presentation and yesterday evening's presentation will have both been recorded, and we will be putting those on our website for those who want to refer back to this presentation. In case you have any other comments or questions that you think may have been answered during the presentation, or if you would like to have a comment on the presentation. I'm going to pass the mic back over to Lance so that he can close out our formal meeting. We will remain open until 7 p.m. and you may still raise your hand for questions and comments. As of right now, we are still requesting that you submit your written comments by December 3rd. Lance?
Thank you, Angela. Appreciate that. Yep. We appreciate each of you joining us this evening. This does conclude our formal presentation. We will stay on in case somebody tries to sign into the Zoom meeting late and would like to provide some feedback to us. However, you're welcome to leave, or if you'd like to hang out with us, you can. There's no problem either way. But we appreciate you taking the time. We really do value your feedback that you've provided us tonight, and we look forward to receiving that input if we can in writing and working through it. We've also captured all of your input as well during this Zoom meeting, and we're taking notes, and we've got that captured as well. So we will have records of your feedback here, as well as anything that you choose to submit to us in writing. So as we mentioned, we're really currently at the scoping stage. We're right at the beginning stages of this planning effort. So there haven't been any decisions made, but we're looking forward to working through this land use planning process with everybody. please don't hesitate to reach out to one of our other offices. We realize that this is a large undertaking. We're covering a lot of plan amendments. It can be a little bit confusing. And so if you have questions about a specific area and it happens to be in the Vernal field office, I would just encourage you to reach right out to the Vernal field office and ask them. I'm also available if you want to give me a call. I'd be happy to visit with you on it as well. If it happens to cover an area of the Moab plan amendment, why we can call the Moab office or over to Price. And we're happy to visit with you and try to help clarify any questions that anybody might have as we're working through this planning process. So with that, we appreciate you being here this evening and thank you very much.